welcome to this week's video. For this week, I'm doing a book review for Acts of Faith by Erich Segal. Now, Erich Segal's most popular novel is Love Story, which I haven't actually read that book, but I have seen the movie. And I don't know if, like, the book... I assume the book will be, like, richer and more, just sort of better, because I just thought the movie was sort of okay. For me, the most interesting, most compelling part of the movie was the relationship between Oliver and his father. Because I felt like the movie just sort of... It didn't get me into... I think her name was Jenny? Jenny and Oliver's love story. I mean, we literally just got the entirety of their relationship, like, in a montage in the movie. So, I know that it's sort of plagued as, or praised as this sort of grand sort of love story. And yes, what happens to Jenny is very sad. But, I don't know, maybe because it was sort of the first of its kind, really, that sort of gripped audiences that much, but I don't know, I've seen that sort of story done better. Now, this is the movie that I'm talking about. The book I haven't read, but I have, like, sort of read here and there bits and pieces of Erich Segal's work before, and I really like his writing style. But this is the first, like, actual full novel of his that I have read, and I really enjoyed it. I liked it very much. It's not quite loved status. So if I were going to, like, just off the beginning, we'll just do this at the beginning, I would rate this about, like, a 4. 4 out of 5 stars. But let's get into why. Now, if you are new here, my book reviews are spoilery. So if you have not read this book, and you don't want to be spoiled, go read it, come back later. So what is Acts of Faith about? Let's read the back blurb, shall we? Acts of Love. They met as children, innocents from two different worlds, and from that moment their lives were fated to be forever entwined. Acts of Defiance. Timothy. Abandoned at birth, he finds a home and a dazzling career within the Catholic Church, but the vows he takes cannot protect him from one soul-igniting passion. Daniel. The scholarly son of a great rabbi, he is destined to follow in his father's footsteps and destined to break his father's heart. Deborah. She was raised to be docile and dutiful, the perfect rabbi's wife, but love will lead her to rebellion and into worlds the patriarch would never dare imagine. Reaching across more than a quarter century from the tough streets of Brooklyn to ultra-modern Brasilia to an Israeli kibbutz, and radiating the splendor of two holy cities, Rome and Jerusalem. Here is Erich Segal's most provocative, ambitious novel to date, the unforgettable story of 3 extraordinary lives and 1 forbidden love. Acts of Faith, a towering novel of sin and salvation. Now, I picked this up because, one, I was interested in actually reading one of Erich Segal's books, because I remember reading one of his books. I haven't not finished it. I think it was Man, Woman, Child that I remember starting, but I hadn't finished it. And I want to get back to reading that book and discovering sort of more of his work. But Acts of Faith I picked up because Timothy has a dazzling career within the Catholic Church, but the vows he takes cannot protect him from one soul-igniting passion. Now, you all know, if you are not new here, you know that I am all about that Thornbird-ish. Priests in love, forbidden love, I am all about it. So we have Deborah and Daniel, who are two children who are Jewish, and their father is the rabbi. And Timothy comes into the picture because he, I think, saves Daniel from some bullies. And Timothy actually ends up getting in trouble because he breaks a window in Daniel's father's house. What's the father's name? I think his father's name is like Moses or Moishe or something like that. I think his name is Moishe. And Timothy breaks a window in their house. And so, as punishment, he has to be their sort of house attendant. Because, in case you didn't know, on the Sabbath, from, I think, Friday night until Sunday morning? Or is it Friday night till Saturday night? I think it's Friday night till Sunday morning. Jews are not supposed to work or do anything sort of. They're not supposed to work. They're not supposed to cook, clean, anything. That is their Sabbath. That's their like day of actual rest. Now, I used to work in a Jewish hospital in the housekeeping department, and on that Friday evenings, on that Saturday that I would work, they would ask me if I could, like, turn on the television, or if I could, not turn on the television, but, like, turn on the light switch, or press the elevator button, because they're not supposed to do any of that. So Timothy gets brought in to sort of do those things for the family for that day that they're not supposed to. They're not supposed to drive. None of that. So yeah, and so Timothy and Deborah strike up a friendship that, of course, as they grow older, they start feeling a disturbance in the force. Now, Deborah is supposed to be getting married to, Deborah's father finds out about this friendship, and he's all, hell to the fuck no. My daughter is not marrying any Catholic boy. So, he arranges for Deborah to get married. Deborah, of course, does not want to get married because she's in love with Timothy. And also, she doesn't want to get married really kind of at all. She wants to sort of do, like, more with her life. She wants to go to school. She wants to do, all this kind of stuff. Daniel, this poor schmuck, he's being raised to follow in his father's footsteps. And guess what? He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to be a rabbi. He goes to sort of university, and he meets this professor who is a rabbi, but he's more of a progressive rabbi, more of like a modern, secular, I guess, rabbi. Rabbi Moishe, like Daniel's father, he's orthodox, like hell, like straight rigid Orthodox. So he's not overly thrilled with these new ideas that his son is bringing home. And Daniel finally gathers up the courage to tell his father, I don't want to be a rabbi. I don't want to follow in your footsteps. And his father feels so betrayed by this, but that he basically disowns Daniel. And I wish parents would understand that, yeah, it's sad for the child when you disown them and when you say that you want nothing to do with them or whatever. But the one who's gonna end up paying in the end is not the punishment you think it is, because you're punishing yourself. Because, okay, you're a parent, you have a child, you raise that child, the child grows up, gets married, has children, lives their own life. And you're a grandparent now, you're part of that life, you get to live, in this extended family that you created. When you get mad at your child and when you disown your child, guess what happens? Your child goes off without you, because guess what? As they grew older, that's what they were going to do anyway. They get married, or not, their choice, because guess what? As they grew older, that's what they were going to do anyway. They have children, or not. Again, let's assume we're going with the getting married, having children, grandchildren, all that. We're going with that scenario. They have children, which they were going to do anyway. And they were going to have your grandchildren, which, whether you disown them or not, they were going to do anyway. The only difference now is that your idiot ass is not a part of this new family that they've created, that they were going to create without you in the first place. If you had not disowned them, you would be enjoying that community, that relationship with that child and their spouse and their children, your grandchildren. You would be a part of that life. But because you were a stubborn moron, instead of actually working on your issues with your child, you were like, no, you are dead to me. I want nothing more to do with you. Okay. I was going to grow up and get married and have children and live my life anyway. You were going to be a part of that, but now you chose not to be. Bye! Now your ass is at home by yourself. And I'm married with my children, living my life. Not the punishment you think it is. Just a little side rant that I just find it so stupid when parents do this. Because guess what? Kids grow up and they get married and have children and they live their lives and they create their lives. And you're choosing not to be a part of that because you're mad at a decision that they made. Okay. Every, Father's Day, yeah, I'm going to be sad that my dad isn't there. Every Mother's Day, yeah, I'm going to be sad that my mother isn't there. But guess what? I have my kids. I have my spouse. I'm okay. You're not. So, just a little side rant that I wanted to go on. When I read about these parents who disown their children because, God forbid, the child wanted to be its own person and not a carbon copy of you. Now, stick a pin in that because we're going to get back to that. So, Deborah refuses to marry this arranged marriage that her father has set up for her. So, the father, I think, sends her to live with this family, and he actually sends her to Israel or Jerusalem. Jerusalem? Israel? Oh, I think Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, or is Israel its own? I think Jerusalem is the. I'm showing my ignorance here because I'm having a total brain fart because I know this, but it's left my brain. I've written enough. The arrangement, Resistance Book 1, is set during World War II. The characters in there are Jewish. And I'm completely brain farting right now. So I know this. I'm not ignorant. I'm just forgetful. But anyway, he sends her to live with this family in Jerusalem. And the mother is just basically not a nice woman. And basically treats Deborah like a slave. And Timothy, basically loses Deborah, and he finds solace in the church. Now, I don't really understand why Timothy sort of gravitated towards the church. 'Cause, yeah, the is it a priest there that sort of kind of takes him under his wing and, like, kind of guides him and, like, gives him, counsels him, because Timothy's an angry boy, as you would expect, considering that he's raised, in this, like, by these, like, terrible people. His uncle and the uncle's wife, they're not good people. They're not nice to him. So he's a very angry boy. And there's this priest that sort of, looks out for him and counsels him and stuff. And, like, I understand Timothy feeling, like, sort of, like, close to the priest and, being comforted by him and just sort of, like, appreciating this relationship that he has. But I don't understand how, it wasn't really clear to me why Timothy chose to sort of become a priest, but he does. And so Deborah is sort of being, like, miserably treated over in Jerusalem. Timothy's becoming a priest. Daniel has left home and taken up with this woman who they're together for a while. And the heartbreak of Daniel's betrayal causes his father, Moshe, to die. So Daniel feels guilty that he essentially killed his father. His father has a heart attack and dies. And, of course, the family blames him. I don't think the mother so much, but I know there's a sister who I think blames him, or I don't remember if it's the other way around. But one family member blames him, the other one sort of doesn't. But, yeah, so he, like, feels guilty about that. But he, goes on sort of with his life as an adult does, as a growing person does. Because while we love our parents, there comes a time where, guess what? We don't need them anymore. We love them, but we don't need them. And this is what parents don't understand. And listen, I can say this as a full grown-ass adult. I love my mom. I don't need her anymore. I don't need her to take care of me anymore. So, if she chose not to have a relationship with me anymore, guess who'd lose out on that? Not me. I'm an adult. I'm living my life. But yeah, that was the point that I was making before, and just reiterating that. So Daniel is living his life, and he's with this woman, but the woman decides that she's not really feeling it anymore, so she kind of a little bit dumps Daniel. But to sort of make herself feel better and make sort of like the parting a little less sad, she helps him out sort of financially and teaches him about like business and like stocks and investing and all this. And he learns really, really well, because Daniel becomes a rich boy. He becomes very wealthy and, builds this great sort of financial kind of empire for himself. Deborah meets up with Timothy in Jerusalem when he is, I think, just about to take his vows. And he's sort of like, I don't think he had taken his vows yet. He's about to. He's on like some kind of retreat with a bunch of other priests to be, student priests, for lack of a better word. And he meets up with Deborah. And the feelings are still there. So they do the thing. They do the dang thing. And yeah, Deborah gets a little bit pregnant. But she doesn't tell Timothy, because of course not. So Timothy like goes back to, take his vows and like become a priest, because while yes, he's in love with Deborah, at this point in the story, he loves God more. Future me, just to enter in that I completely forgot to mention about Timothy's parents. Now, yes, I mentioned that they treated him not very nicely. And that his mother was actually alive but in an institution, and they never let this boy go see his mother. And we learn later why. So, I think once Timothy is an adult, one of his priest's friends, or the archbishop or somebody, tells him sort of like where his mother is being held, what institution she's at. So he goes to go visit her, and she starts talking about his father, who Timothy never knew who his father was. And she starts talking about his father, but like she's like so out of it that like it doesn't make sense. But she starts to, the things that she starts to say make it sort of seem like his father might be the rabbi. For a second, it looked like she was saying that his father was Deborah's father. And we are talking, I was like, are we getting some Flowers in the Attic incesty shit? Because incest is wrong. However, I love the Flowers in the Attic books. I love anything B.C. Andrews. I am totally fine with consensual fictional incest. But of course, Timothy being a priest, this would not be okay. But as he like visits his mother and investigates some more, we find out that his father was not the rabbi. His father was his uncle. His mother's sister's husband. So Timothy's being raised by his mother's sister and her husband. And turns out, sister's hubby did the thing with wifey's sister. So the man who raised Timothy, because all his life he thought that he was being raised by his aunt and his uncle. Oh, he's being raised by his aunt. But he was actually also being raised by his real father, who he thought was just his uncle. And that was just blew my mind. And no wonder they never wanted him to go, this poor boy, to go visit his mother, because his mother was going to tell him the truth. Even though the cheese had clearly slipped off her cracker, he was going to find out the truth if he went to go visit his mother, and he did. So, yeah, that whole subplot was bananas. And I just couldn't believe that when I first did the review, I forgot to mention that, so I wanted to stick that in there. And, yeah, that's all I wanted to mention. I don't know why, but he loves God more. Like, 'cause it's, like, I'm a religious person, but, listen, the life that he had, that this child had, was not great. So I just felt like the reasons for him choosing to become a priest, they weren't solid enough for me. I didn't feel really why he wanted to become a priest, but he did. And he wanted it, at that point, he wanted to become a priest more than he wanted Deborah, and he really wanted Deborah, and he loved her. I don't, like, that's made clear. The dilemma that he has is made very clear. And you feel that. You feel how conflicted he is. That part's clear. I just didn't really understand, like, why he sort of had that devotion to God over, you know, this life that he could have had with this woman. But, so yeah, he chooses to go and, like, become a priest, and he rises, like, really high up. I think he becomes even I think he becomes, like, cardinal, and I think he either becomes archbishop or he's, like, on the cusp of becoming archbishop. And Deborah leaves, you know, the woman who's, like, whose house she's living in, like, treats her badly. She basically finds a spine and is like, to hell with this shit. I'm getting the hell out of this house. And she ends up in this sort of, it's called a kibbutz, I think it's called. And just the way that it was described, just to me, it kind of felt like a hippie commune. Where, like, everybody works together, and they're all, like, growing vegetables, and they're all, like, you know, doing this and that, and it's a community, and they're all, like, yeah. It kind of felt like a commune without the pot. Without the Maria Joana, if you know what I mean. And that part, at least for me, I love books set in the Jewish world. I absolutely adore them. I don't know why. I think maybe I was Jewish in a past life. I don't know. But I've always sort of felt drawn to that world. But for some reason, for me, the kibbutz chapters, they sort of dragged for me. I wasn't really sort of feeling them. I wasn't sort of interested all that much in her experiences in this community. I guess because sort of in my head, like, it kind of felt like a hippie commune. And that doesn't seem all that interesting to me. So that part kind of dragged for me. So she's preggers, she has her kid, doesn't tell Timothy, because of course why would she? And eventually she leaves the commune and starts, I think, teaching. And sort of as her kind of career develops, she starts teaching in these, like, rabbi, scholarly kind of jobs. And her course kind of takes her up to the point where she actually becomes a female rabbi, which I thought that was really cool. I was really happy for her for that development for her, because all through, like, when she was growing up, she saw all this, like, attention, lavished on Daniel, and Daniel was the promised one. Daniel was the one who was going to take over the rabbi duties after the father died. How that turned out. Keep a pin in that. Again, keep a pin in that. But anytime that Deborah wanted also to learn what Daniel was learning, Moishe was like, no, you have a vagina. You can't learn. You can't learn these things. You have a vagina. Listen, again, I love that world. I love the whole, like, rabbis and, like, Orthodox Judaism, and, like, I love that. But that's one part that they need to get their shit together. They really, really do. And I say that as a Catholic, we really need to get our shit together in that same way, because that feminine misogyny bullshit, we have that too in the Catholic Church. Good God. I'm not saying we're better than, no, not by any stretch of the imagination. But she wanted to learn what her brother was learning, and, like, no, her father was like, no, vagina, bad. You marry, you pop out kids, that's all you're good for. So I really liked that she actually ended up in this somewhat adjacent world to what she wanted to be learning as a child growing up. So she's become this, like, female rabbi. She has a son named Eli, and he's a bit of a troubled child, because he's being raised, apparently if you're raised without a father, you become a troubled child, which there's parts of that I agree with, there's parts of that I don't, so yeah. He has trouble in school and stuff because he doesn't have a sort of, like, male parental figure. And Deborah, she does as good a job as she can, and she's a wonderful mother to him, but she's also has these other responsibilities, and of course it's hard for her to juggle both, as it is for a lot of mothers. So Daniel becomes this rich, wealthy man, and I don't remember why, but I think he's like donating, like, all this money to these, like, organizations, and there's, I think it's this one sort of rabbinical, is that what it's, is that the term for it? But these like, this like rabbi association, he is sort of like sponsoring or like donates money to, and he starts getting more involved and more involved with that, and eventually sort of starts falling back into that rabbinical world, and starts feeling like this business world that he has built for himself just isn't sort of fulfilling him anymore. And he kind of starts turning back to his father's world and getting more and more involved with that. And we'll take a pin out of the thing that we had pinned about him not wanting to be a rabbi. Guess what? Daniel becomes a rabbi. Now, granted, it's sort of not necessarily taking up his father's place. Like, he's going to be his own kind of rabbi. But he becomes a rabbi. And this, and a little bit something else that I'm going to mention as we're getting towards the end, is what took it down from keeping it being a 5 stars to a 4. I felt like all this heartache, all this betrayal of his father's world, all this angst that, for story purposes, he caused his father, and he caused his father to die of a heart attack, supposedly, according to certain opinions in the book. For him to just turn around at the end of all this and decide, yeah, okay, I'll be a rabbi after all. Like, you couldn't have just done that when your father asked you to. You had to go through all this shit just to come back around and do what your father wanted you to do in the first place. Because, okay, Daniel becoming a rabbi, I have no doubt that Daniel's going to become his own kind of rabbi. I don't see why he couldn't have taken up his father's mantle, become a rabbi then, like how his father wanted him to, and still be the rabbi that he wanted to become. His own rabbi, his own way of becoming a rabbi. Like, was it, like, if he had done it then, would he not have been able to be his own kind of rabbi? Like, did he only have to do things the way that his father did it and just copy his father's way of being a rabbi, like move for move and word for word? Like, I don't know much about like that, the logistics sort of that and the rules of that. So maybe it's, if he had become a rabbi when the way his father wanted him to, he would have to do it the way his father wanted him to. But like, as he grew into his own man, like, I don't know, it just felt like we went through all that with Daniel just to end up where he said he didn't want to be in the first place. So that was a little bit of a I didn't love that. With Timothy, the same sort of thing, but yet not. I'm not sure if he reaches Archbishop or if he's on the cusp of becoming Archbishop, when he decides that he doesn't want to be a part of the priesthood anymore. He doesn't want to be a part of that world anymore. That it's not fulfilling him anymore. He wants to go and find Deborah and live a life with her and live whatever years he has remaining, because, again, like, they're all in middle age at this point. They've all, like, grown to, it spans, like, 25 years. And I kind of felt like, okay, again, you went through all this angst, all this torment, all these problems of like loving this woman and not being able to be with her because you wanted to be a priest and you wanted, you loved God more and blah blah blah, and just like one day all of a sudden you decide, nah, change my mind, I'm gonna go and find the woman that I love and then be with her. Like, if it was that easy for you to set it aside, to take off your priestly robes, why couldn't you have done it back then, when you had the opportunity to do it in Jerusalem? After you and Deborah had done the thing and admitted your feelings for each other. And again, I don't know if it's like, you have to go on the journey yourself, and like, you have to learn the lessons of life to just go ahead and do the thing that you should have done in the first place. So, okay. Timothy decides he doesn't want to be a priest anymore. So he goes off to find Deborah. And he finds her son instead. And he figures out pretty quickly, this is my baby. This is my baby boy. Eli's about, like, I think 11 or 12 now. But he doesn't tell him, obviously, because he wants to talk to Deborah first. And this is also why this kept the book from being a 5-star. Deborah and Timothy's reunion was very lackluster. Like, he just shows up at her house and is just basically like, okay, I want to be with you now, and let's live our lives together. And Deborah is like I think it's Deborah who's like trying to tell Eli that, oh, by the by, this is your father. But Eli has somehow already figured it out. And he doesn't, I kind of felt like, he doesn't seem to care all that much. But it kind of, like, he kind of walks away from, like, the conversation with, like, it's written that, like, he has, like, kind of, like, tears in his eyes, but, like, I think, like, happy tears or whatever, like, that he's glad, like, that he has a father now. But I didn't, the same kind of feeling where I was like, I don't understand why Timothy wants to become a priest. Like, the motivations there sort of, like, weren't strong enough for me. I kind of felt the same way with his and Deborah's reunion. The feelings there weren't strong enough for me. And the scene was very short. Considering that they've been apart for like 25 years. That reunion was like a deflated balloon. So, yeah. I will say, this book was supposedly written in like 1992? Yeah, 1992, which surprised me. Because Erich Segal has that sort of 1970s sort of rich writing that I really, really like. Like, I can't explain, but his that sort of 1970s writing voice. And if you read like books written in the 1970s and compare them to like books that are written today, you can sense a definite sort of difference in voice and like writing just style, and just I loved his writing voice. I loved his writing style. So I definitely want to read more from Erich Segal. This book, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my time reading it. The ending just kind of fell flat for me, which puts it at a 4 rather than a 5. I just kind of felt like at the ending, with that ending, it kind of negated the... Okay, how many pages was this? ...541 pages. Yeah, 541 pages. We could have saved 541 pages of angst and torment and drama if you had just done at the beginning what you did at the end. And like, I know, like, yeah, then there wouldn't have been a story and blah blah blah, but I just felt like if they had done the manner in which Timothy had left the priesthood, if he had sort of done it differently, I don't know how, but just differently, then maybe the ending would have worked better for me. Daniel, he should have never turned around and become a rabbi at the end. Because, especially Daniel's, well, not especially, because I feel just as strongly about Timothy's journey. But I guess, for the purposes of my point right now, especially Daniel, the whole, like, being disowned by his father, the whole, like, betrayal, quote unquote, for it to basically have meant nothing, because he ended up doing what his father wanted anyway. That, for me, he shouldn't have ended up becoming a rabbi. Like, he could have still, like, you know, had his, like, financial success and all this, and, you know, give your money to, like, the temples and, like, you know, support them and stuff, and sort of keep that sort of as his way of kind of, as much as he could, honoring what his father had done and what his father was. But be his own man. I just felt like to have him become a rabbi at the end, after all, kind of negated the entire journey kind of that he went on, in my opinion. But yeah, I enjoyed this book. The ending was a little flat for me. Timothy and Deborah's reunion, I wanted more, considering how apart they were for the majority of this book. And like that was fine because you did like go on separate journeys with these characters, and they were on their own journeys, like all three of them were. But their love kind of stayed alive because you got them thinking about each other through the years, and kind of that parts of themselves were like longing for each other even as they were building these separate lives. So I liked how they kept that love story alive, in a sense, as they were going on these separate journeys. So yes, I am definitely going to be reading more from Erich Segal. I love his writing voice. I love his writing style. I want to read Love Story to see if it's better, in my opinion, than the movie was. The movie was fine, but it didn't come across as this grand epic that everyone seems to like make it out to be. So I'm very interested in reading that and reading more of his work. So that's going to be it for this week's video. Have you read this book? I would love to know what you think. And what other books from Erich Segal should I read? Love Story is definitely one. I want to get back to Man, Woman, and Child. I think I have Doctors somewhere. I think I have it somewhere in this TBR mountain. But, we shall see. So I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!